The tide appears to be turning in the transgender debate. As I have argued elsewhere, the Marxist progressive left, the dominant religion of Western elites, needed a new victim to give religious meaning to their lives. They settled on those claiming gender dysphoria. The left championed the transgender cause, calling it the human rights issue of our time. The Biden administration tied transgenderism to Title IX and made opposing it against the law. The left vilified anyone who disagreed with them. It cost Charlie Kirk his life. In 2020, Colin Wright, an evolutionary biologist at Penn State University, said the surge in transgenderism was not based in biological reality, but was a social contagion, and that is, a bandwagon created by social media. Then, according to Wright, quote, "Within hours, colleagues denounced me as a transphobic bigot. Anonymous activists emailed universities to poison my job prospects. A professional job board even published mock job listings, warning others not to hire me. My academic career never recovered." End quote. There are many other examples of cancellations and assaults on the reputations of people who questioned the dominant left-wing narrative. But the left bet on the wrong horse. It is clear that transgenderism is, at the very least, complicated. Now there is a spate of articles out criticizing and even condemning the trans movement. The Spectator ran an article last October that put forth some of the latest data. The medical specialists who treat gender dysphoria estimate that about 5 in 100,000 people truly suffer from it. Yet, by 2022, 100 of every 100,000 people were being given puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones. In other words, 20 times more people were receiving medical interventions than would normally be called for. The article, which I've cited below, said that a study in the UK found 50 times more people were being treated than showed true clinical signs of gender dysphoria. Then the article says, yet even among the minority of children who fall within the clinical population, puberty blockers and hormones aren't the answer. Multiple systematic reviews reveal no reliable evidence of benefit. The harms, however, are significant, including diminished bone density, cardiovascular disease, and infertility, to name just a few. Simply put, subjecting children to dangerous medical interventions in the name of gender-affirming care is never justified. End quote. So why in the past 10 years did we see dramatic growth in so-called gender dysphoria? The Wall Street Journal had the answer. Lisa Littman was a physician and researcher who coined the term rapid onset gender dysphoria in a 2018 paper to describe a newly emerging cohort of adolescents, overwhelmingly girls, with no childhood history of gender dysphoria or even sex nonconformity. Quote, "These girls suddenly began describing themselves as transgender, often after friends in their peer group did the same. Dr. Littman proposed that this pattern was best explained by social contagion, meaning the spread of ideas or behaviors you get through peer influence." End quote. In other words, these young girls were just going along with the crowd. It is outrageous to turn this herd mentality into a civil rights issue. A backlash has settled in. What evidence do we see of the decline of the trans movement? Social contagions, or going along with the crowd, can cut both ways. Andover Phillips Academy in suburban Boston surveys over 3/4 of its students annually. In 2023, 9.2% identified as neither male nor female. This year, that number has crashed to just 3%. A similar story emerges at Brown University. 5% of students identified as non-binary in 2022 and 2023, but by 2025 that share had dropped to 2.6%. In other words, in 2 years, it was cut in half. The Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression's annual survey of U.S. college students showed that the percentage of students identifying as transgender halved from 6.8% in 2022 to 3.6% in 2025. In other words, all of a sudden, a condition treated by the left as a civil rights issue of our time was about to disappear. From a social scientific viewpoint, gender-affirming care is never justified. From a medical viewpoint, it is never justified. In the view of biblical theology, it is never justified. It appears to be a passing fad that has created a firestorm of hostility toward its enemies and has ruined countless lives. Why did transgenderism become such a big issue in the first place? I've explained this in other videos, but let me summarize. For the left, all of history is conflict between groups, oppressors and victims. Fighting for justice for victims gives people on the left religious meaning. Defending the victim is an integral part of their religion. In this little melodrama, what is always required? Victims. A number of years ago, I said that the left was winning their battle for gay rights. I predicted then that they would find another victim to assist. I never dreamed it would be the transgendered, but that's who they settled on. After this issue goes away, the left will find another victim to defend. They have to. It is a religious imperative. The Marxist progressive left is the cult that has replaced Christianity as the religion of the elites of the West. Removing Christianity as the driving force of our culture always ends in disaster. The transgender craze is just one more example. The answer is simple. Return to faith in Jesus Christ, and He will give you rest for your souls, and He will protect you from insane doctrinal beliefs.